saying we went through last time is the Nekudas Advarim, the shit of the Ramak. Why the musig of Ein Sof only Atzmos is Ein Sof. Every other musig is not Ein Sof. So to touch Ein Sof on Ein Sof is B'li Gvul. Second touch Ein Sof is Shlilas Klal Teirim. And both of these in are only Shachas the Gabi Atzmos. Because the Klal called the first push, the finished push, but the first musig of Ein Sof that in of B'li Gvul Ein Sof Leis Pashtusei say that there's no Hagbala. It's to where the Lukus is mispashet v'nimtza b'kol makim ad Ein Sof. The whole Hagbala of makim is that Shachas the Gabi Ein Sof. So that Indian is only Shaykhs Legabi Atzmas. Every other thing, Kol Mash Yesh L'Tchila Yesh L'Tichla. It's not just a kosev, that's the Milsa B'Taima. Anything that has a beginning means the Be'etzav doesn't have to be. It's only here, it's had a certain Siba. So he's always Mugbal, according to the Dover Rosh's Mechayviz Mitzias. He's not in Sof. The same way Be'etzim, he didn't exist yet to be Mechadashim, so as Mitzias is a Azach, was his Uvgemach Gevarn, was invented. So it could go back to the way it was originally. You say be'etzem without affecting anything. The way the Messias said Atzma, he didn't exist, so that he's not in safe. So the only thing which has to be, which ein leitchil, is only Atzma. That's point number one. There's like shlilas kol ateirim. Only Atzma shlilas kol ateirim. His Messias is not. It's the gedarim of Messias that we know. The musik of Messias that we're aware of is that there is certain criteria kaviyachol, or certain musagim, and without them you're not considered the same way when they get the gashmis l'mashal, that there is certain, you say something exists physically. You can't just be you exist physically mean that you suit to the what's considered existing in the physical realm. So if something you're able to touch, something that takes up space, something that takes up time, so it exists in a physical realm. A svarda l'mashal which you can't touch, so it doesn't exist begashmis. Now there's a svara is nimtza beruchnis. Why is a svara nimtza beruchnis? Because the svara contains within himself the svara mitzvah varay. Why does it exist? With what does it exist? What gives it the right to exist? Its existence is that a pi seichel, it's correct to say mitzvah varay. So the gdarim of seichel are he suits the gdarim of seichel. So he has within himself the characteristics of being. So usually there's a certain musig of mitzias, of what's considered nimtza, what's considered existing. And what is the pshat that something exists? That he suits these characteristics, these musagim of being. That's a mitzias. Any mitzias nimtza. Any mitzias that he's not nimtza me'atzmusay. He's nimtza because he suits a certain inyan, a certain mizgeres. Mashik and atzmus, so mele the shaila is there has to be first the mizgeres. Has to be first what's the musig of mitzias, and then you say this thing suits those characteristics. That's mitzias nimtza. Mashik and atzmus, the fact that he exists is me'atzmusay. Not because he suits any musig of mitzias. Before there's any musig of mitzias, he exists because he's the emes. He doesn't have to suit anything. There's no gidra mitzias there altogether. There's no musig. That's only shas we get. The Rebbe Shosayim brought the Hachodesh advarim that we'll see later what the shidduch ham kobalim, but Rabbi Chassidus, these inyanim there's a musig of ermein amar. Ermein amar, the pashtus is that. Is this galus amar? He says because is this galus amar, which we'll see later. What's the avon of mein amar? But mele, the is also in sof. Because mein amar, because that means that the idea of gilei lukus, there's a mitzias, there's a reality of gilei lukus, which is a mitzias. It's not atzmos. Atzmos is the musik of gilei is also in Hachodesh. Atzmos is, but ein sof, the gilei lukus is also ein sof. And not only the is Ein Sof, but also the has within himself the Keach Ein Sof, which he attaches here, the Shlilas Kol HaTeirim. We'll have to see later. The word of Ein Amar also brings within himself not only that the is Megale, the aspect of Moir which exists in the Etzem of Elokus, but also the Nekudah Shlilas Kol HaTeirim is also expressed and is brought out through there, which we'll see later. And Al Teres L'Dater says in Tanya that through the idea of Mitzuyusim Atzmuseh, of the keich atzmas, that mitzisim atzmas, that's also nimshach in tevel. So that brings that's the beer al pichsid. We'll see later. That's the beer al pichsidis that his havos is bekeich ein sof, but it's the idea That's the way that Rebbe's miyashiv the shverikaiten of leishon isu, which we'll see behemshach. But that's we went through last time. Kihine, let's see the this. So the Ramak we understand. I mean, that Mazga and the two Musagim of itself, and he explained very well how these Musagim are only Shaykhs and Atzmas. Any other musik doesn't have to be. B'meila it's not shaykh as behecher che'inin mugbal, and b'meila it's also has a certain agdar, but this is. It's there, so that's what you care to be for. Zeh sh'ramach l'yiman le'meshim and so whatever m'suv v'nim sh'chumeni yisbarich. Ki m'chinas atzmos mamish, hu b'chinas in sofa amiti chulu kana. We'll see the prat. Ki hine he says like this. Kol ma shenikchu ha'mekubalim. Horishenim means drame. Loim ha'shakes nikri gam tzin in sof. Chin rame the pirish ha'ras nikri in sof. What was their hechrich hu rak kedei lefarish eich hanei violation isi. What's the schwierigkeit? L'chor what Shemaz given. We're already mivar. What was the violation isi the Ibrahim beginning of the Maimer? That l'chor there's a chayes eliki which is malubish in every nivra. Atam a chayes kulam. And there's a keich ha'mahava which is malubish in every nivra. So l'chor it's a shinei. Of them the teretz, the whole system of his havas only deep is only b'china chitzenis. B'chinas diburi is baruch b'lvad. So what's the shaila? What if? So what was machriach and kobalim? Hadn't the chateres. So let's see the way it brings it over here. She'inshim shini beis barich v'shum is spilus ad bria selim. It's the inyan of there's no shinui in Elokus, and the whole idea of bria tut garnet is there's no, it doesn't have any effect kabiyach on Elokus, and that's ashveka. This is l'chule nim b'ven klal eich la'yeh shum shini b'bria selim es rabim v'atzumim oid. It's interesting the way you ask it. Wie kann man sagen, there's no shinui? The Eibusher creates a ribu elemis rabim v'atzumim eid. There's ribu elemis, and each elemis are dvarim atzumim. It's interesting the way you ask the question. And so l'chor we already gave it teretz, because the whole system of his habas is dibur. I mean, it's the problem. There's a ribu elemis. The Rebbe says in the Eibusher's dibur ki mahavin evraim ain't safe. We're saying what's the same way a person with his keich dibur could be medaber diburim inkets. So but the fact that it's Elam is Rabim Vatsumim, so that means that this harvest is not from B'chinas Adibur. What's the shayla? We'll have to see the understand. But he says like this. Via Dua, he adds here, this harvest b'keich in Sof Dafke. So mechanisch should stop exam with the teretz that this harvest is Dibur. Because that's if the only thing which with the shayla we were speaking about earlier, the Vatam Chayis Kulam, so there's a the mashal in Semer, there's a little bit of Chayis of Tzmicha. And in Bali Chaim, there's a little bit of Chayis of Bali Chaim. There's all the Chayis Mugbelis. So when you get the Chayis Mugbelis, you could say the Pnimis of which is Ein Sof, that's B'chlam not expressed in the Bria. The Bria itself is Zahara Bavat, Koloch Shiv. The Bria itself only contains within himself a Keich Yitzeni Legamri, with a Mashal of Dibur, a Keich Yitzeni Legamri. But from the Pnimis of Elokus, from the Etzem of Elokus, from the Ein Sof of Elokus, that the Bria doesn't contain within itself the Senior. Ab dem bringt es nicht das. In dem klar, ich lese im Shin zu wir do das habs bekeich ein sof dafke. Shul levad bekeich bi khotel habs mein lees. Lo khode we find that this habos is bekeich ein sof. Ken ich lese nicht klar. Yeah, I'm not this is like stamas for about the lashon he says over here is that ich le yeshum shiri brias elemes rabim va tsumim eit. Saying have to see later. This shaila over here, the way you asked it, this havas b'keich ain't soft afke. Shehu levad b'keich b'chol havas mayin liyesh chulu. I mean, the lashon of hu levad b'keich b'chol havas mayin liyesh, that's the chore lashon of the Alter Rebbe. But in Kubalim, they didn't. He's speaking about the Rebbe is speaking out within the Kubalim and Rishonim. The Kubalim and Rishonim, this he's asking a shaila. Eich leishini sikla. The Kubalim and Rishonim didn't speak about the keich atzmus of mitzusim atzmuse, which is in the Bria. That's said the Alter Rebbe. And the fact that the Nivra is Margish Atzmus Mitzuyusi, that he doesn't have a makir, that stems from the fact that Atzmus Mitzuyusi Atzmus. But the Kabbalah Hashem didn't speak about this Indian that Atzmus is reflected in the Bria. In order to have a Yesh Ma'ayin, you have to have a Keich Blikvul, Keich Ein Sof. So if you say that only Atzmus is Ein Sof, Kum Teches, that this Havas is directly from Atzmus. If you say there's a certain expression of Ein Sof in the Bria, the only Ein Sof, according to the Ramak, the only Ein Sof is Atzmus. So it comes out that in order to have the Bria, who live only Atzmus, not mitzad the Vart Mitzvah Atzmus, who live adi mitzad Ein Sof. Because in order to create a Nivri Yesh Ma'ayin, you have to have Bligvul. Davar Mugvul is not mitzad Gvul is not shaykh. So since you have, in order to be Mahavi, you have to have a Keich Bligvul. So and according to the Ramak, the only Bligvul is Atzmus. Come to Chayz that there's a certain shinu, there's a certain Indian in Welt which is Nevei mitzad Atzmus, and that's the Chor Hashayl of shinu. You can't just say Arab Avad. But the way that Lepoil Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe says that not only in this house have a union of Bligvul, which we'll see the Prat, there's also a union of Mitzvah Matzmuse. But the Alter Rebbe is Amevor because Alter Rebbe is Mechadish, the Musik of Eir, the way he says later. But the Lashon that he says here, which he calls Alter Rebbe's Lashon, but Legavidem Kabbalah made up his landish. You understand what I'm saying? Shabbos Geich in Savdav, because Shabbat Geich B'chotel Havis Ma'ayin Liyesh Chulu, V'im Ken Ech L'Shin Nisiklam. We'll see the way he says. L'chem pirshu shashpa ba'elam is hainu lahabis elam is lahachis elam is im shu kech ein sof mamish lechadesh ma'ayin liyesh ein ze eise spalis ba'atzmos haber if you should have some ayah there doesn't kesef. That was their answer. So they're not speaking about mitzisim etzmos. The Alter Rebbe read that what the Alter Rebbe says that who the bad v'kei v'chol mean the Alter Rebbe they know mitzisim etzmos and that like a keser and rotzen and not mitzisim etzmos. They read that in order to have a nivra, which is in order to have a yishma'ayin, you have to in of kech in stuff has to be what in of blikvol. So of them and for inference they look it's in of blikvol, look it's so it's peil shini in atzvos kaviyachol. So of them sagt in of ein stuff that's keser.
Why does his havas need to be?
We'll see in a minute. I just want to bring it the. So they answer this havas tekadei ratzon keser. It's the same teretz of Arab Bavad. Because in order what's expressed in the havas in of blikvol, not only atzvos is blikvol, keser is also blikvol. So b'meile legabi atmos leisheni sikla. That's the teres and the kudas teres that they say. So it's just kedai to mention this. He says like this. He says pish hashpa ba'elam is. This have to just remember what just one prat. That's again maybe it's a say to the whole thing that he's saying here. What's the shaila of leisheni sikla pashtus? It says l'chura any moving klal eich lo yeh shum shini bris elam and amatzu made. In pashtus advarim. When we speak about the Davar Mugla, we understand very well. You have a Rav, which is Mashpia Seichot HaTalmud. The Talmud is one level, the Rav is a different level. In order for the Rav to be Mashpia the Seichot, the Talmud should understand it, there has to be a Shina in the Seichot. The Seichot is going to state only the way the Rav, the way his Me'ach, the way the Rav understands it, there's no way the Talmud is going to understand it. So the fact that in order for the Talmud to understand it, Talmud has a different type of Me'ach than the Rav, lower target than the Rav. It has to be with Samson the Seichot, in a way that the Svara should be Masim to the Me'ach HaTalmud. Then it's a Shina. You have the Svara the way it's Meir, the way the Rav understands it. And you have the svara the way the Talmud named the svara, and under zach. That's versteht Rapi Pashtus. Now the shaila is then you have the when you're speaking about you see, that's when you're speaking when you get to Dvar Mugbala. But let's say you're speaking about the reason for the ashpa is mitzad bligvol, not mitzad gvol. So let me just bring out this point. The Mashal, the Rebbe's dogma, they were saying the svara the way the Rav has it is also a certain tzir. So in order for it to come to the Talmud, it has to relate to the Talmud. You have to change it. But what if the alien is bligvol? If the alien is not shaykhs to the whole musik of Akbala, so the reason why he's effective in the Makam HaMekabel is not because he has to suit himself to the Makam HaMekabel. The alien, the way he is Mkaimeh, is not Mukbal. Then there's no shayla of Shini Luchur. You understand what I'm saying? When is the shaykhs the musik of Shini? When the alien that have seichel the way it is by the Rav is in one surah. And it has his magbolis. Only it's let's say the dakas of the svara only a me'ach dak of the Rav can understand. The Talmud it doesn't have a me'ach dak, can understand the dakas the way the Rav understands it. You have to be serious. But the dakas has agbolit. The edelkeit of the svara the way the Rav understands it could only be meir, could only be present, could only be mispashit in the me'ach dak of the Rav. But in the me'ach Talmud, it's not shaykh. It's in order for the seichel to come to the Tav. Yes, it's But what if you have an alien which that's all a dover which has agbolit. So it has a certain area where a makim which is masin to the sinyan. Mash even if you have something which is not mukbal in a certain, the hagbala of makim doesn't apply to it. Something which is ein saf, blikvol. The musik of makim is not shaykhs the gavidarini. So then he doesn't have to lower himself down in order to be effective in the mekabel. The alien kameishu bim kaime is ein saf. Like the Rebbe's dogma, the Rebbe brings me a kama poem this Yerushalmi. I mentioned it before But what's the dogma that brings it in the Kama Pamim? That the Gemara brings, the Yerushalmi brings, the Lakel that they get to Bezdin, that Lakel Gemer Alay. The Eibishter is finishes off or helps out with the Dayan and Paskin. The Yerushalmi touches, what does it mean? That what do you need the Eibishter's help Kaviyachol on the Psak of Bezdin? So the Yerushalmi brings if you have Lamashal Lechatchila Apidin, you're able to ma'aber l'chedesh adar. Doesn't have to today we do Rapi Cheshbon. I'm saying it's not shei mekatsh Napi. You could decide to be ma'aber chedesh adar until Rish Chedesh Nissen, theoretically. With the rice, until Rish Chedesh Nissen. Only then one of the Chedesh Zalachem. Once Rish Chedesh Nissen comes, you can be ma'aber chedesh adar. Until the end of Chedesh adar, you could still be ma'aber it. So let's say if you have a psula that her birthday is Adar Sheni. So when there's no Ibra, her birthday is regular Adar Stam. But let's say her birthday is Gimel Adar Sheni. The Pearl Gimel Adar came, was Hashanah Pshuta, Bezdin was still not machlit to be Ma'aber Hashanah. They didn't, Mutkahat na medarf nicht, let's say. So the halacha is that a naira till she's ktana, till 3 years old. So then the bia is lishma bia and psulei chayzrim. Pasha b'teva guf. The bia is like the psulei chayzrim. If the bia happened after she's about shalish, then psulei inim chayzrim and the bia is a bia. I mean, so the shaila is so the Gemara brings. Let's say you had a ktana, and gimel other passed. They still weren't ma'aber as a chodesh. So now she turned 3 years old. Now bimtzias, she's 3 years old. So now psulei inim chayzrim. And if someone, if there was a bia, so that was considered a bia. She could be nifsal kukum, whatever the dinim are. But yenevet kigna einish. Let's say if she was a ktana, which let's say she was married, so she be a bia, and it could be but what if later in the month beznot machat given to be ma'aber the chodesh? So now it comes out that she wasn't 3 years old. So the halacha is that psulei chayzrim. Her guf is mishtana, and the bia is not considered bia, and all the dinim that are that. So the shaila is, in order to mishana the teva guf, you have to have a physical operation to change the nature of someone's guf. A guf is the mitzativa, doesn't get affected by a psak din of bezdin. Here, bezdin paskin that al pi chachmas atayra darf eis komen that he should be ma'aber sachedesh, and because of that she's not 3 years old yet, and now her guf is mishtana. So lo chayzrim. So what's the pshat in them? So that's since the psak of Torah, and Torah is the Eibishter's ratzna elim, the Eibishter's psak. The guy with the Eibishter's psak, there's not. If the Eibishter says so, is it? What if the ratzna elim is that right now this Ketana is 2 years old, so he doesn't have to be mitzamtzim himself and to suit to come to a mode that is mashpia on a guf. The psak guf is not mukbal. The Chatchila doesn't have a specific area where the alien is. The Eibishter's higher than the whole is ain't self this pashtusa. So if Apitera is 3 years old, so it's 3 years old in all realms. Not because we're misamtzim on all realms. Because the psak of Torah the Chatchila has no shaykhs to the musig of realms. It's ain't self mamish. The male is as a yamadum. The Chatchila the Inyan is not a mukbal the Inyan. Understand the Inyan. So even if you don't, it's not that b'mizgeres of the physical world, it was misamtzim to affect this physical world. The Inim el-Chatchila has no medidus. Every mitzvah is that every davar mukbal has a certain area where it is. So if you want it to affect on another realm, it's going to have to come there. You see, it's saying this dogma. If you have the mashal sama mavis on the table, mamash a dangerous mashka on the table, and the doctor is going to say that api seichel, it's ug effect for such a thing to be on the table. It's dangerous for this to be on the table. It's mamash a dangerous thing. So if the sama mavis is going to go and move off because since the doctor said that it's hipach haseichel mamish, it's mufrech for such a thing to be on a table, it'll be a pelagadol. It's not the only way the shtikol geshem is not affected by a svarif and a doctor. You're gonna have to go and take it off the table. A physical hand it's a physical thing is affected by a physical hand. The fact that apiseichel, it's arguing effect for svarim to be here after you learn. But it should be brought back. So it shouldn't. But the svarim aren't affected by apiseichel, the fact that it's not supposed to be here. Svarim are affected by physical things. So that's there. The svar is davar mukbal. The svar is in elam haseichel kum teis that svarim have to be on the shelf after you finish using it. And elam haseichel kum teis that the sam hamav is not going to be on the table. That's an elam haseichel. But elam hamais is kum teis says it. In order to affect keich hamais, you have to have something that exists in keich hamais. Mashikin a psaka teira that it's chodesh adar. It's not that al pi a gewisser madrege mitzias kum teis that she's 2 years old. The Eibishter says she's 2 years old. The Eibishter is not a madrege mitzias. The Eibishter is not shaykhs to the whole musig of geder vagbal. The idea of geder vagbal is only shaykhs to begin with in gvul. The whole musig of makim to begin with only exists in gvul. So mainly he exists in all realms. Understand the Indian? It's a whole different type of. That's a klur. So mainly, if you say when we're speaking about the shal relation needs to beginning of the maimer, we're saying there's a nivra. If atam chayes kom lepel, there's a nivra. There's a chayes which is malubish in the nivra. It's not that the ein sof kfi shehu is everywhere. That's a different word. When we say that there's keach hatzmicha in the ilan, so lepel there's a certain musig of tzmicha that expressed through the metzias of the ilan. When we say this word, so now we understand the musig of shinu. We have the inyan. We have, let's say, the chayes of tzmicha, the way it is mufshit from being mislabish in the trees, and we have the musig of chayes of tzmicha, the way it's mislabish in the trees and grows a specific amount, whatever it is. That's the Chorashinu. But let's say we would say the fact that this happens is B'keich Ein Sof. In order to have a Yesh Ma'ayin, befrat that the Yesh is Be'ina Reich from the Ayin, so you have to have a Keich Ein Sof. That itself wouldn't be a Shail of Shinui. If the Savas, the way it comes beside the Ein Sof, since the Ein Sof, we're dealing with the Bligval of Elokus, which the Elokus is higher than the whole Musik of Makim. So in order, when he says if Oliver Tzeni, it should be a Nivra, he doesn't have to lower himself down that the Ratzin should be Masim, that in the Nivra's realm, it should be Nergesh that there's a Ratzin. The alien could stay in his Madrege Kaviyach, in his Ein Sof. And if Oliver Tzeni, there should be a Velt, with Verna Velt. Why is there? Because Meir Lematasa, they just Ein Sof. And if he says it should be Gashmis, it's Vern Gashmis Eichet. That's not going to be a Shail of Shina. Shina is when you have the alien the way he's mufshit from the Tachten, and then you have the alien he has to relate, he has to change, he has to suit himself to the Tachten. You have the alien in Tuefana. Mashiach, if the alien Kameshu who has Nagbalas, he doesn't have to lower himself down in order to affect the Tachten, like you say when you get to the Psak. He doesn't have to lower himself down in Mitzamtzim Lefi Erdech and Ever in order to affect the Guf Dartan of the Ktanim. Lechatchil it's an Ini which has Nagbalas. The same way they say about the Eibishter's the whole musik of Zman doesn't apply to him. But mainly he's nitzchi. Not because he relates to the musik of Zman. Chatchila is not shaykhs to all these akbalas. But mainly it's going to be everywhere. So the chatchila, the musik of being in a specific place doesn't exist like him. But mainly it's not shaykh to say he's only there. He's going to be everywhere. But then the etzem kamei shehu is nimtza b'kol makom. So there's no musik of tzimtzum v'shina. There's no yerida. So there's no shayla of shina. Understand what I'm saying? But he says the lashon here. He says, "Pirsh shashpa ba'elamis." The mashmos is, even does have verstehen, but what ends up being is when you say the mashal when they get to the psak bezdin. So there's like it's no shayla of shini. The bezdin doesn't have to be married to psak that it should relate to this guf. They pass can apitela the zank afika and b'meile vertase. Someone can say it's a shini. It's not a shini. That's the ratzin. I'm saying there's nothing outside of it's the ratzin being the sky. So the emes is there's nothing besides for the fact that the ratzin is being niskaim. From the point of view of the psak, there's no metzias of a velt that's affected by the ratzin. Lechatchila, the ratzin is ein sof, but mainly it's a skaim lepayil. Lechatchila has nagbalas. But here we're saying something else. Here we're saying, let's say this psula, this sektana take, is not margish the keich psak. I'm saying if someone wouldn't have known the din, there would be no doctor would be able to figure out from being mizbeinin as that it came from a psak. Why? Because the psak taka never left the world of the Ratz Natayr. What I'm saying is, if you would say, if this house lives at Keich Ein Sof, the Avan Goya I'm saying inside the psak bezdin, then there would be no way for us to see in Welt any expression of Ein Sof. Because if I stay their word, what are we saying? Take when you get to the psak of bezdin, when you get to the psulach chayzer. I don't have a tzveiter dugma in them. But what's the amitis advar? Wie bad is Oliver that's not Torah? Wie bad as the Ratzna alien is? It should be Mu'ubar. So that Ratzna is the sky. That Ratzna is Ein Sof. B'meile, whatever the Ratzna is, Vertaze. But in order for the Ratzna to be the sky, does he have to leave its element? It has to now relate to a Geshem. The alien Kfi Shehu is not Mugbal. B'meile, it's going to affect everywhere. But the question is now: will you be able to get that from the everywhere, the source that brought to the sin? That's the shayla. What I'm saying is, if you're going to say, you say that the Eibishter it's the complete voice. The Eibishter is Ein Sof. Meir Lematase. As it's gewollt to gevarna Welt. So the Ratzin, let's take it in this way. The Eibishter's Ratzin. There's the Ratzin El Zenavelt. And since Oliver Tzeni is Sigavarnaze. So the fact that the world came into being is because the Ratzin is Niskayim Lepayil. But the Shayla now, so then we wouldn't be able to know from being Mizbenin in Welt, so the Gdarim from Welt, that there's Ein Sof. The klal is that whatever doesn't exist in Mitzias, we can't be aware of. If we know of something, is because the Inyan exists in the realm of Elam Hazar. Means Ayid the Pile we have Biyurim different. Let's say I'm not sure, but he says over here Ech le yeshem shini b'ris elemis rabim v'atzum ma'id. So you have Yerim Chassidus that in the Ribe Yischalkus Nevraim of Welt, or in the Ribe Elemis is a certain expression of Blikvul. The fact that there's Zamachav, there's Arichas, is Ribe Yischalkus. The fact that you have that there's Havas, that ever brings us in the Maimer of Tashon Chav Gimel, that since this Havas is that there's in Yonam of Blikvul that you see in this Havas. It means if the fact that there was so that means that the Blikvul is not only in the realm of Ein Sof. Even in Welt, even in the realm of Welt, there you have Ein Sof. Not only in the realm of Ein Sof, he's not mugbal b'meilef, if he says so, vertaze. But then he doesn't have to leave his realm. The way he is in his element, which is mufshit from any type of mitzvahs, he's going to affect because kachal bertzeni. But here we're saying a different word. Here we're saying that there's a musig of Ein Sof which is expressed through the bria. The bria is there's from Elimus, Mitzvahs of Elimus, not Ein Sof. It's a Mitzvahs of Elimus which is not the Ein Sof of Elikus. There's a Mitzvahs of Elimus, and Mitzvahs of Elimus is an independent Mitzvahs outside of Elikus. There's a Mitzvahs of Elimus, Elimus Rabban Vatzum Ma'id, outside of Ein Sof, and in these Elimus you're able to gain that there's a Yanam of Ein Sof which is expressed in these Elimus. That means that the Ein Sof is not only present within the realm of Ein Sof. Ein Sof is also present from the point of view of Welt, from the point of view of the Nivra. So that's in of Espalus and Shinu. You have the way Ein Sof, the way he is b'mhusehu, and you have the Ein Sof, the way he is reflected in Eilemus Ram Batzim. And that's the Musik of Shinu v'Espalus. I understand the meaning. You can't just say that this Havas is Bekeach Ein Sof. Bekeach Ein Sof, there's no shinim. It's at blig vol if the musik of Havas came, because the fact that Abishur is Ein Sof is blig vol, then there's no shayla of shinim l'chatchila. Because in order to affect this Havas, doesn't have to affect the Tachten. The Eldin can stay in his makom, and the Eldin kfishu is Ein Sof. But here we're saying that the Tachten possesses the Eldin. Where the Indian of blig vol didn't only stay in a lukus kaviyach the musik of blig vol, and all the saying that there should be a veld, but there was a shpa of Ein Sof and Elimus. That Elimus from their point of view expressed blig vol. Versteht the meaning?
That's why it was not good enough answer.
That's why it was not good enough. And there's a shayla of shin in the Gabe Sof too. What I'm saying is, if you have a musig that, let's say, if you use a dogma of Ratzin. So Chassidus says this, but sometimes you have this marshal. That Ratzin is the Meshichas HaNefesh itself. So you can have a tzir where, let's say, the Nefesh wants, and even if it says that even if the Ivarim don't necessarily feel B'chlal, sometimes a person won't even be conscious that he wants, but automatically the Ivarim are going to do according to the way his Nefesh wants. Since the Nefesh is the premise of the Ivarim, so the Nefesh has a certain reflection of this type of Ein Sof. The Ratzin is connected to that part in the Nefesh that doesn't have a Mokim. And if Oli Bertzoyne kach v'kach, automatically the Ivarim are going to do what the Ratzin wants. Because that's a double Yetzim Neklal. So that would be, but in that case, in the Ivarim, you wouldn't be able to, the Ivarim don't feel that there's a Ratzin. You can't sense something that doesn't exist in your world. So the shaila is, in Eilemis, how do we have expressions in Eilemis of the Blikvul of Elikus? Let's say we know today, in order to have a yesh ma'ayin, since the yesh is be'ein arei from the ayin, in order to have a yesh ma'ayin, you have to, it's not enough, you need to have a keicha Blikvul. How do we know about it? Because the musig of Blikvul is expressed through the in of Havas yesh ma'ayin. It means that the musig of yesh ma'ayin contains within itself the Blikvul. That's not the Ein Sof Kfishu Hu Mufshit. That's the Ein Sof the way he's expressed through the Pu'ul of Esavis Yishmayim. That's the Ein of Shinu. If the Eifan Esavis would just be al derech like the Psak with the Bezdin, then the Shinu Yaguf doesn't contain within itself the Keich of the Psak. It doesn't express the Keich of the Psak. The Psak doesn't relate B'chlal to Gashmis. It doesn't relate to the Makim where it's played. The Psak is an Indian Mufshit from any tzir that it's Chedesh Mu'uber. And since it's Ein Sof, maybe it's going to be like that everywhere. But not that you have this Indian the way it's going to be expressed in that tzir. Here, in the Mitzias of Eilemis, you have the way the Eilemis express Blikvul. So that's not enough just to say that because the Blikvul is Nimtzu B'Kol Makim. It's the Blikvul. There's the Blikvul the way he has been Kaimar, b'muhusay, and you have the way he's expressed and the way he's brought out, the way Eilemis bring out the Nakodah of Blikvul. So that's the Chodesh Shayla of Shine and the Spilus. I'm saying I'm not. I'm saying Kenzain. I'm stam saying. I don't know if that's a true word. It's a Remes Lama. He doesn't say this.
What you're saying is
What do you mean? I'm not. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The lashon he says here, hashpa ba'ilmis. That means that it's not stam. There's hashpa in ilmis. Lahabes al ilmis. Lahachis al ilmis. There's an in of kech ein sof, which the kech yesh ma'ayin contains within himself an ability of ein sof.
What does it mean that we only see things that are mitzias?
What I'm saying is liyitzir. What I'm saying is if the I'm saying is even B'Parshas Dvarim. How do you know that they started the different rayas that you can't say that the world is that there's no makra ma'ava because the world is because the davra nifsad, and the fact that it's mugbal and zman is a raya that it's not true. Anything that anything that ends has to be that it's not that has a makra. Different rayas. But let's say there was no klali aseichel. Saying is, let's say there brings this thing. Sometimes it brings this common problem. You say 2 plus 2 is 4. There's no way it could be 5. Why can't it be 5? Because there's certain rules of Metzias, and the rules of Metzias is that 2 plus 2 equals 4. The Eibush himself is not mugble in any rules. He created all the rules. He could have made the rules for character. 2 plus 2 equals 6, and then there would be no way we should understand that 2 plus 2 equals 4. The same way today it's mufrach to say 2 plus 2 equals 4 because that's why is it mufrach? Because the Metzias is nishtazeh. The Gidra Metzias are, the rules are that 2 and 2 is only going to give you the result of 4. And a cause has to be before an effect. That's all Gedarim the Eibush created. If the Gedarim from Fakert. And if it could make the Gedarim Fakert, that a Mesubah has to come dafke before a Sim. The effect has to come dafke before the cause. And if the cause comes before the effect, it would be a Pella. Means the fact that we understand things a certain way is because the reality is that way. Why can't we understand that 2 plus 2 is 4? Because the Seichel Adam can't comprehend such a thing. Because the Metzias is nicht tazeh. But if the Metzias what gewen anders. But whatever you understand because the reality is that way. And and there's rules of reality. There's rules what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. If the whole concept of I'm saying what were you asking the Gabi Ein Sof? Saying we're saying now in order to have a yesh ma'ayin, you need a koyach of Ein Sof. So we see that this activity of the Havas Yesh Ma'ayin expresses Bligvul. If the idea of Ein Sof wouldn't have been this nimshach, wouldn't have been present within the realm of the P'ul of Yesh Ma'ayin, then you would see a P'ul of Yesh Ma'ayin. You wouldn't come from there to say there's Ein Sof there. If the whole idea of Ein Sof wouldn't exist in our concept. If the musik of Ein Sof was never neslabish in the Bria. The same way from if there would be a psak in Bezdin, but the Ktanes and the Chveis and the ganze Welt, they'll never know from there there's a psak of Bezdin. They won't know how it happens. That there's a psak of Bezdin. There's no way to identify from the Pu'ula, the psak, because the psak doesn't relate to the Pu'ula. It wasn't neslabish in this Pu'ula. The psak stayed in his own element. And the way he is in his own element, he has no limits. But it's not that the psak was mislabish and related to the tzir of the pula that he was piled. So if you only know of that tzir, there's no way they're going to be traced back to the blikvul, because it doesn't exist in that tzir. So you can have a kasha. You have a kasha. You want to, whether you have a kasha, you want to have a kasha. Why is there a kasha? Because we know that a davar kasha is only affected by another davar kasha. I didn't say davar kasha here. So you have a kasha. Let's say that if this hav was to be created, if this hav was to only be the darg of a malikalam, only the darg of dibur would be mislabish in the bria, and the keach ein sof would be mahave in a way that ein sof the way he is in kaimeh. Like I'm saying the psak bezdin. So then we wouldn't understand. Instead gvul we only understand that a yesh has to have a kiruf to the ayin. But how could there be in this have a yesh which has a richuk? There's no erech at all. So we wouldn't understand how the yesh came from ayin. But we wouldn't say that the fact that the yesh came from the ayin. So we see over here that because the makar is bligvul, is ein sof. That we wouldn't have the whole concept of ein sof wouldn't exist. So we have a kasha. Wie kommt der yesh from the ayin? We have any kashas. But to say that's an expression of the fact that the yesh is bligvul. If the concept of bligvul wasn't present in our realm. Lepoil, if he doesn't, he says, this is the way he says. He says, it means that his havos, in his havos contains. How do you know this havos b'keich ein sof? He says, v'yadua. Ishavas v'keach Ein Sof. Means that within the Ishavas we see that it's an effect of Ein Sof. It's a Pa'ula that contains within itself a keach of Ein Sof. So that's a Shaila of Shina. Und versteht die Minion? Sie ist nicht so klar. Huh?
How do you see the answer from him saying? What's the...
The Payal, he brings from the...
It's like what we were saying from that kid before.
Nachamal from the Akeda? No, it's Habas. He means it's Habas Yesh Ma'ayin. The fact that the Yesh is Berichu Gomer from the Ayin. It means that the Yesh has no erech to the Ayin. If the Makra Mahavet was a Davar Mugbal, a Davar Mugbal could only affect a Yesh which has a Yachas to the Ayin. The Payal, the Yesh, is Ve'en Arech. To be Mahava Nibur, which is Ve'en Arech, that's not the word I was saying of Gashmi, it's a different word. That's the word of Ve'en Arech, and that's Machriya to Keich Ein Sof. I was saying something else. The fact that the Yesh is Be'ein Arech to the Ayin, so that only a Makar which is Ein Sof, which has no Agbalis, could be Mahava Yesh Ma'ayin. A Yesh could be Mahava Yesh, could have an effect on a Tachtin, which is Be'ein Arech far from him. Because he has no Agbalis. If the Yesh had an Erech to the Makar, so then the Makar, that's like Seichel could be Mashpia to Midas. That's not Ein Sof. Seichel has a certain Tchum. But Seichel could be Midas are Kelim for him. So if the Makir would have a certain Akbala, so he can be Mashpia on a Dover which is Be'ein Arechta. The fact that he can have a Yesh which is Be'ein Arechta the Ayin, that's because the Makir is Ein Sof, he's Blikvul. So but that you see within the idea of affecting a Makabal which is Be'ein Arech, that idea contains within itself, it expresses the Tchuna of Blikvul. So that's already in the Vashpa. That's not that the Blikvul is Bimkoime. You have the Blikvul the way it is Bimkoimehu, and you have the Blikvul the way it's reflected, or the way it's Mizbata, through the Pa'ula of Yesh Ma'ayin. And that's B'dakus HaShinui. Because you have the Ein Sof, you have the Musik of Blikvul the way it is in its own Mohos, and you have the way Metzias Shechutzim and reflects it. It's Havas Yesh Ma'ayin. The Yesh is not Ein Sof, and you have the way that Metzias reflects in the Blikvul. That's the Ein of Shinui V'Yis Pailas.
That's what it says.
This is in Kabbalah Marishenu.
That's what it says.
No, Ergash Kedesh Shetar Asaf Vaiter. The word of God I was saying last time that he says this I'm saying the Musik of Blikvul. There he speaks that you have in Veld in of Shlilas Kol HaTorah. That's Gashmis. That's Shin. This word that I'm saying now is the Yesh is Be'ein Arech to the Ayin. But Fakert, the fact that there's Nishav Azach, which is Be'ein Arech to the Makar, that brings out the fact that the Makar is Ein Sof. So it expresses something. What Rabbi Shmuel brings earlier that in order to Mahavi, you have to of Shlilas Kol HaTorah, that's the word of Gashmis, doesn't express anything. Not the word of Ein Arech either. But the Kabbalah Marishenim Geret, Lepel the Yesh is Be'ein Arech Vait from the Ayin. So you have a Nivur which is Be'ein Arech Legabi the Makir, you need a Keich Blikvul. But what do we see? But the Mice is, in other words, where is present not the Blikvul? Only in the element of Ein Sof, or Lepel, the Pa'ula of Yesh Ma'ayin expresses Blikvul. Lepel, the Blikvul is reflected, is Nimshach in Achaplatz, in a Yesh. Elam is bring out the Blikvul. So that's the end of Shinui V'Yis Pailas. You have the Blikvul the way it is B'mhusay, and you have the way it's the Slabish, the way it's the Zgal in Elamis.
The bit of it is in Rias Elamis. It's not
Is not the Elim Kvishu Mamish.
I'm saying the bit of the Blikvul is in the way because the
In
Nibra.
Kama Pratim, I'm saying. In Arecha the Nibra. I think that's
He's
the
saying
word.
he's saying in the inner of the Nibra that is the bit of the Blikvul.
Yeah, in the Sabbath. It says Lahu Levad Keich V'Chot L'Havas Ma'ayin Liyesh. Means there's a Pa'ula. See, Pasha said the word. A person does a Pa'ula. Zrika 7. So the Keich HaTnua is Bali Dei Bitui in the Keich HaTnua, in this Pa'ula of Zrika 7. Because Zrika 7 cannot happen without a Keich HaTnua. How do you know it can happen? Because this Pa'ula expresses the Keich HaTnua. So there's the Pa'ula of creating a Yesh, which is Be'ein Arech to the Ayin. That Pa'ula is proofs Miltus Neinsa. I mean, that Pa'ula is an expression of a Keich Blikvul. It's not said that if there would be no kiruv between the Elyon and the Pa'ula, and the fact that the Nivra was created was since Oliver Tzene Vertaze, then but Oliver Tzene the Eibush is Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof is if Oliver Tzene to be a Yesh with Verna Yesh, then from the Yesh you wouldn't be able to prove the Ein Sof. In the Yesh was nicht gehat, because he's the way the Ein Sof is bimkaimei. So B'yemer L'Matas, if you want to say Yesh, it'll be a Yesh. But then from the point of view of the Yesh, you wouldn't be able to trace back to the Ein Sof. Here we're saying that from the Pu'ula of Yesh Ma'ayin, I get traced back to Bligvul. Because the Bligvul is Nimshach in the Bria.
How do you see that?
What do you mean, how do we see
How do
that?
you see that?
Because they have there's some the Kabbalah Rishonim said that from the fact that there was this Havas Yesh Ma'ayin, Zetman from them the Keich HaBligvul. He says V'yadua the Havas of Keich Ein Sof Dafke. What's this Yadua? It's Yadua that we have if the Ein Sof, if the Havas be in a Eifin al derech like the Psak of Bezdin that all they were saying is Sigmar Navelt, it wouldn't be a dua that the Havas of Keich Ein Sof. We'd have a Havas of a Yesh Ma'ayin. We wouldn't know. We wouldn't know that that's Havas B'Keich Ein Sof. What are you gonna do?
From the fact that it's Ben Erech, you see that's inside.
Yeah.
Saying it wouldn't be Ben
We would have a kasha.
You're saying it
That's
wouldn't
Kneich Zayn.
we
The
can't-
whole
we can't
Musik
just
of Ein
apply.
Arech wouldn't be. That would also be.
Huh?
The whole true Musik of Ein Arech we wouldn't have had. We wouldn't have known about the Ein Sof. But I'm saying, but the way he says it here is the Maskana. The Pearl steht in Chassidus that we have Rayas that is Havas or Biyurim, that this Havas is B'Keich Ein Sof. So it's not just that it's when you say that according to Kabbalah Marashim, it's not the pshat that the Mishana the Psulim is B'Keich Ein Sof. It's nothing to do with that Pu'ula. That Pu'ula is not the Keich HaPsak. It's the Psak is Ein Sof. Here we're saying that in this Havas is contains within itself the Keich Ein Sof. Yeah, I'm saying here he says two pratim. He says, yeah, I'm not saying this is the andere pratim. I'm saying that's a minion that the shinu is because the inyan of bligvol is not only within the realm of bligvol, also within the pu'ula you have an expression of the bligvol. The insav is also in the pu'ula. That's the real. I'm saying that's not meine biurim. But this word, that's no problem. But this word elmas rambatzum. I'm saying. He says over here that there's lahavis elumas have in of ein sof and lahachis elumas. First, steht that there's the ribi is the in of bleak walls is expressed also the ribi nevraim. Good. I'm saying stam kenza and I'm saying pashas for chayis elumas. You have the chay. He says you have dibur. I mean the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya L'mashal that there's chayis mitzat seviv. That the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. But that's taken. But the Alter Rebbe, but it's behelim. I mean, the nivras. Since it's the elin k'mei shehubim kaimei, without having a shaykhs to the mekabel, the nivras taken on margish the inyan. Why aren't we margish it? Why can't the nivra feel the chayis ein sof that's melubish in inside the ein sof inside seviv? Because the fact that chayis is melubish in the nivra, the chayis inside the seviv, is because ein sof is not shaykhs to sagbal. So the way he is b'mhusay, he's everywhere. That's a different inyan. But within the but he's not present because he relates to our tchunas. Doesn't relate to our tchunas. But the way he is b'mhusay, he's everywhere. It's a different inyan. Here we're saying that within the tchunas of the nivra, we could trace back the bligvul. So the bligvul is not only nimtza in his mahus, in his realm. He's also the gather of elemis is machriach, or possesses within itself inside, and that's a shayla of shinu. Yeah, there's pratim. So wie haben sie verändert? So im shukei ein sof mamish chadish ma'in liyesh ein ze eis is pas ba'atzmos habeira, and l'chura the inyan of ein sof bligvul is only in atzmos habeira. So l'chura is in of shinu. You can't say that it's a psa'ar b'lvad. There was in a chitzeni. It's an inyan of ein sof, and ein sof is according to the Ramak. I mean that's the parshas of only atzmos is ein sof. So you have an inyan of ein sof of atzmos habeira, which is affecting the bria. Yeah. So auf dem haben sie geantwortet, lefi sheis havos hu adei rotzen in akesse. Wir divrim Kabbalah Marishim. Shprinas rotzen ze hu ein sof mamish. Shprinas rotzen. Shprinas rotzen ze hu ein sof mamish. Let's get the brags a second. Zeh, the Sfira Lu Sharatz Ne'akes B'chinas Ein Sof. L'chein Hayadi Hu Eisavas. So what's their answer? Their answer is that the Savas Tak is B'keich Ein Sof, but the inyan of Ein Sof, not the Ein Sof of Atzmos, the Ein Sof of Keser. This you have to remember. So they're not saying that Keser Shlias Kol HaTorah. They're saying that Keser is Ein Sof. This Ein Sof, which is expressed in Savas Yishma'ayin, That's the first musig of Bligvul, of Ein Sof L'Spashtusay. In other words, in order to create a yesh, which is be'ein arech to the makir, only a makir which has no makir, which has no gvul, which is Ein Sof L'Spashtusay, only he could reach, so to speak. Only he could affect a yesh, which is be'ein arech klal. Yeah, that's versteht. So that musig of Ein Sof, Keser is Ein Sof. Das nicht Atzmus. Atzmus Shloas Kol HaTeirim. The music of Shloas Kol HaTeirim is bechal not expressed in Welt. Das ist dabei Atzmus. In Welt is like there's a certain expression of Ein Sof through the Metzias of Welt, within the pool of Yesh Mayim. But that in of Ein Sof is the Etzem in of Bligvul, of Ein Sof L'Spashtusay. And that in you have in Keser. So the Gabi Etzem is Arda Bavad. Punkt the Eibisha Shloas Kol HaTeirim. So the same way Gvul is Arda Bavad, the Gabi Atzmas Bligvul is Zelba Zach Gvul. So ani violation is. There's in Bligvul and Welt. Bligvul is nicht that. Bligvul is Keser. That's the Nekudah. Let's see how it. So Hainu Dol Daitom Haratzne Keser B'chinas Ein Sof Mamish Mitzad Atzmei is Ein Sof L'Spashtusay is Ein Sof Mamish. The first type of Ein Sof Mitzad Atzmei. Why? Look, how can it be Mitzad Atzmei? Look, Kol Mashiach L'Tchili Yesh L'Tichla. It says Yemash Yemash because there was Yishmei L'Vad. Shmei Hainu B'chinas. It says the Ashal Nivra Elam Yishmei L'Vad. What's the pshat Ashal Nivra Elam? So they say Shmei Hainu B'chinas Ratz. V'chein Shmei became Antri Ratz. Me'achar Ashal Nivra means before Bria, bore his chashas. There was not only the Eibusher himself. Who? So what's the klal? Something which is a Hachodesh, he's mugder and makim. So Mele is not in something special to say. So if ein leitchila, so Mele ein leitchila. L'shita sam shmei ein leitchila. Because kad musa is better. Because a kedesh chalagav shpir is heavy b'shem bir sedes on a banzal. Shakeser kadm ke kadm nitzof. Kadmus nitzof. V'me yesam olul mana atzmos v'gom dashim kadm kadmus is better. So chlem ra hainu mishum the shalei is man shalei ha'yerasim chulu. Is the maga the beer? So maybe I'll just maybe it hasn't Sefer Erechim, I don't know. The bill hasn't Sefer Erechim, which to go beer, one of the milim. But the Nekudas Advarim is that's the Kula Alma. Atzmos is Shlilas Kol HaTeirim. And it's not shaykh to say, the Parshas Mashmos Haloshin here, that from when there's Hu, there's also Shmei. A person bred Geboren, you didn't have to decide. You were born, you have Keich HaRatzin, and you have Keich HaTainug, and you don't decide anything. The Eibush is not Muchar, from Vanent there's a Lukus, so he's also has Ratzin, he has this Pchina, that Pchina, the Eibush is not forced in anything. Shlilas Kol HaTeirim. He's not, nothing has to be. Whatever he wants, he decides. I mean, so the Parshas Avada Keser is a Hachodesh. Put like everything else is a Hachodesh. What does it mean over here that Keser is a Kadmin, Kekadmusi? What's mean this? They was just forced to have a darg of Keser. What does it mean? But this is the diuk. The lashon he says over here is Hainem Shem Shalei Hayizman Shalei Yiyar Ratzon. Means there's two different types of Agbolas. There's Agbola of Mokim and there's Agbola of Zman. So what we said before, in order for something, the klal that koma sheyesh le'tchila yesh le'tichla, the Agbola of having a safe to Spashtusay, that being mugdar amakim, is anything which has the Agbola of Zman. But if you only have the Agbola of Makim, then you could have it's in le'tichla. The klal koma she'in le'tichla is dafka within the Agbola of Zman, not within the Agbola of Makim. So shitasim keser is ein sof because keser is not mugbal in the realm of Zman. That's mean that's l'chol keser also is mugbal in the Musig of Zman. Once it wasn't, it's a Hachodesh. Amol das nicht gewesen. So what's the Avon? So the Kudah is that see even the Parshas Advarim. What's the Kudah according to this shit is that what's the Musig of Kamash Yesh L'Tchila Yesh L'Tichla? If something be'etzem doesn't have to be, what's Yesh L'Tchila? Means be'etzem doesn't have to be. It's not only the word the Eibushat created. That's the technicality of the word. What's the Avon of the word Kamash Yesh L'Tchila Yesh L'Tichla? Be'etzem doesn't exist. So be'etzem doesn't have to be. The fact that it exists is a chiddush. What is uvgemach? So what is uvgemach by definition it's not in sof. There where it was made. So this idea of something, what the shaila is mitzad the gedorim of mitzias, mitzad seichel. Let's say, what type of how does mitzias begin? In other words, you say that this room, the fact that there's farm here and tables, that was brought in after. How was the room before anything was done? How did the room look? With svarm or without? See, before anything was done, the room mitzad atzmei was empty. say, but the room inside Atzma, you can't even say empty because the whole musik of empty was created by B'riya Shemaim Ba'aretz. That there was before the world was created, the whole musik of empty didn't exist. But we're now within the realm within the G'darim of this room already. We're standing in this room. I want to say, what's a chiddush legabe this room? What's a chiddush? The fact that this room is empty doesn't have to be created. Once you made the room, you didn't have to create that it should be empty. That's a fact that it's empty. That's the way the room begins. And bringing Sfarim is a chiddush. Saying everything, the musig of Tchila and Tichla is Sevensach, everything has its in Basfarim Adregim in it. That's so Makim means every single Nivra has his Tchum. You say there's Elam Hazar Gashmi. It's the world of Gashmi, it's the world of Ruchnis. When you want to begin Gashmi, it's in the of Gashmi start. What's the basic reality of Gashmis? And what has to, even after you have the realm of Gashmis, what has to be invented? What's a chiddush? What has to be nischadish? So you have the basic tchunis of Geshem, that without them you have no Gashmis b'chal. And then there is, even after you have Elam Hazar Gashmi, so you have the way. How would this world be the way it is b'tzad atzmei? And what has to be? What's the chiddush? What was nischadish? What has to be effective? What has to be created? See, a person, in order to talk, you have to do something. In order to be quiet, that's the natural state. Without doing anything, you're quiet. Talking is a chiddush. Talking is going to do a pula. Being quiet is not a pula. Being quiet is being not doing anything. You say even being quiet is a chiddush because the neshama before it was nislabish in the guf, the whole idea of being quiet didn't exist. But the neshama the way it's lamayla is not. That's in a different element. That's in a different realm. But in the realm, the way the person is as a neshama mlubash beguf, what's the natural state for this realm? The natural state for this realm is to be in a state of quiet. And speaking is not a chiddush. It's not that when you're speaking, now I'm in a new mode, and the natural state of that mode is to talk. Speaking in that state, in that mode that I'm in now, speaking is the chiddush. Speaking needs a makir. Not speaking doesn't need a makir. That's the interesting to say the akbal of zman and the akbal of makim. The akbal of makim is avadi. You say the person. What I want to bring out is that there's the akbal of zman means that when you say that something didn't exist at a certain time, and at 1 o'clock it came to be, that means that within its own realm it's a chiddush. It's be'etzem dafner zayin, not be'etzem dafner zayin, is be'etzem mitzad higher dargis, doesn't have to be like that. Mitzad this mitzias, really it should be otherwise. Without being mechadesh anything, without affecting anything, without going and inventing anything, how would it be naturally? It would be without it. When you say there's akbal of makim, you're saying that there's a higher realm where this Indian doesn't exist. But this Indian doesn't exist everywhere. But in its realm, this is the natural state, the way things have to be. So it doesn't have to be in Hachodesh. You understand the meaning? Chassidus always brings that the Gabi Zav. So you have a din that is only becomes tar mituma. We just learned the Rambam. We don't have these halachas, but that's some halachas. That in order to be tar from tuma zav, you have to be tevel mayim chayim. So it has to be meimayim, not stam water like mikveh. It has to be meimayim. So the Gemara says, and the Mishnah says that any nahar that any mayim that within 7 years it gets dried out the mayim. So it's possible it's mayim mechazim. It's not mayim chayim. It's mayim mechazim. So this says since every 7 years, within 7 years it becomes dry, so it's not an emes mayim. So why is it not an emes mayim? Because what's the emes mayim? If the nature of this thing is that it's a stream, if the nature of this place is that it's a stream, why within 3 years it becomes ice? The fact that within 3 years this place becomes dry land is right. But etzem, this place is not a stream. Etzem is dry land. For different zaitika reasons, because there's the cloudy weather, different. Maybe there's water here. If the nature of this place was to be a stream, so why mitamol 1 year yeah and 1 year not? The fact that 1 year and 1 year not means that without any external reasons, the place misadatzmai is dry land because of external reasons. So there's water there. So why don't you say the same thing? Even let's say you have a stream that never ends, that goes that is skemolish nifsak, but still the stream only exists here. It doesn't exist somewhere else. That means that the makim mitzadatzmai, the nature of the place from its very essence is not a stream. Because if the nature of Elam Haza was a stream, then it should have been everywhere. The fact that the stream is only this place, that it's not, the fact that it's not everywhere is a siman that the mitzias be'etzin is in the code of this mitzias is not mechayiv to be a stream. But that's different type of akbala. Avada, there's this place and there's that place. But the Hagbala Zman is a whole different type of Hagbala. The Hagbala Zman is that even where you are, your mode, the way you're in, is a chiddush. That's not the way you are supposed to be. So when talking by definition is a pula, it's the person is not in a mode the way he is ba'atzim, the way he is without affecting doing something, without doing a pula. Mashik and being quiet is also a chiddush. Legabi neshama shel ma'ala is also a davar chodesh. But mitzad the matzav the way I am now, mitzad the darga of being in neshama luvish beguf, being quiet doesn't have something. I don't have to affect to be quiet. That's the natural state of being. So you say like this: the klal, we have a klal. This klal is only something that within something. Whatever has a beginning means the etzem doesn't have to be. The fact that it exists is a chiddush. The fact that it's a chiddush, so it only exists where the chiddush, where it was a schadish. Mashiach, something which ain't leit chila, that means it doesn't have to be in a schadish. The mitzvah is the way it is. That's the way things are be'etzem. Doesn't have to be affected. So ein leit chila, ein leit chila. So the gabi this in is not negeya the agbala of makim. It's negeya the agbala of zman. Means the vart is the Kabbalah and Rishonim learned the Eibush is shlilas kol ha'teirim. The Eibush is not forced in anything. The question is shlilas kol ha'teirim is higher than the musik of mitzvahs. There is no rules of reality there. Shlilas ha'gvul, shlilas ha'bli is higher than the whole built-in mitzvahs nimsa. But then there is the Eibush created a reality, created a mitzvahs, which has different characteristics, has different darim. How does the musik of mitzvahs begin? That's the shayla. What's the most basic form? What's the initial state of reality? What's mitzvahs the way it is be'etzem? So that they said tziyur, gvul, chachma, chesed. That's even within the musik of mitzvahs, it's a chiddush. Why does it have to be dafka chachma? Why does it have to be dafka this tziyur or that tziyur? Mashiach in a tnu of bligvul of pshittis, that doesn't have to be in a chadash. How does apiseichel? How does mitzvahs have to begin? How does the mitzvahs have to begin? In even that there's no tziyur prati. It's the etzvin of mitzvahs without a specific form of mitzvahs. That's etzvin of mitzvahs. So that doesn't have to be in a chadash. Avada the Eibush could have made klalim otherwise. But all the bertzin should be a mitzvahs of there should be the inyan of shlilas kol ha'teirim is the way the Eibush is be'etzem, which is beyond the whole concept of mitzvahs. That's built in mitzvahs. But then the Eibush wanted that he should be expressed and he should be in his gala within the realm of mitzvahs. What's the initial state or the highest state of mitzvahs? Al piseichel, the highest state and the initial state of mitzvahs is the mitzvahs the way it's not mukbah in a specific form. That's the inyan of blikvul. The fact that shlilas kol ha'teirim, that's the mitzvahs doesn't begin with shlilas kol ha'teirim. That there's a mitzvah, there's a lukus which is bechlal higher than the whole musig of mitzvahs, all the gdarim of mitzvahs. But the meret vu heit zachan the musig of the musig of existence. The musig of existence begins with the concept of blikvul. And then the fact that there's different types of mitzvahs, there's chachma, chesed, gvura, teferes, that's already a chiddush. Even after there's the realm of being, the realm of mitzvahs, the musig of tziyur is by definition a chiddush. What's up is there tziyur? What's up is dafka the form of chachma or chesed? But the fact not having a specific form, ein sof, that's not something which has to be in a chadash. Mitzad gidra mitzvahs, mitzad seichel. So meaning that they held that the ratzin, which is the initial state of gidei elukus, the way elukus is nisgala and nirgash, how much mitzvahs is able to be margash from elukus, the etzem of mitzvahs is ratzin, is kesser. That's the etzem of mitzvahs. You say me you have what's the etzem of a person? You see, the etzem of a person is the way he is in neshama l'mayla. That's a different darga and ganzen, and there's no effect between the neshama l'mayla to the way the neshama is l'mata. What's the initial state of a human being? The initial state of a human being is the way. How is he be'etzem? Let's see. The way he is mitzad is that he's not. The fact that he's silent. The fact that he's speaking. That's already a shinur. That's already not the way he's be'etzem. Now, you have to go do a pu'ula. So al derech zeh, within the gdarim of seder shtalshalos, within the realm of Welt, the musig of bligvul doesn't have to be in chadash. The musig of bligvul is not a chiddush. It's ein litchila. What does it mean ein litchila? It doesn't have the agbala of zman. The agbala of zman means that within this realm it had to be in chadash. That's the agbala of zman. Means till 1 o'clock you weren't talking. This same reality, till 1 it wasn't talking. After 1 it was talking. So that means that this reality, how is he be'etzem? How is he without inventing anything within him, without affecting something? In what state is he? And that initial state doesn't have to be affected. That's the way he is naturally. See, but you have another realm of reality where this whole mitzvah doesn't exist. Good, we're not dealing with that realm. But that realm doesn't affect this realm. That's a different realm leganz. There's the realm of atzmos, which is shilas kol ateirim, and then there's the realm of mitzvahs. Wie hebt sich an the musik mitzvahs? That there's a musik of blikvol. Versteht the meaning? He says this. He says lashon. He says, "Dai tam shu kadem kad musis barach." Tzarich leimer dahainu mishum shaloi hayazman shaloi yiyah ratzin. How do you attach it? There was never a time that ratzin didn't exist. There's mekaymis that ratzin doesn't exist. Ratzin is blik vol. Ratzin is the musik of pshitis. It's not shilas kol ateirim. Shilas kol ateirim, the whole musik of ratzin doesn't exist. And the ratzin is mechudesh mamish. But that's from the point of view of shilas kol ateirim, ratzin is mechudesh. But shilas kol ateirim is beyond the idea of mitzias. It's built to mitzias. But mitzias means a specific type of being. The lepel, if around the musik from not with the Eibusher is when there is no musik of mitzias altogether. The Eibusher himself exists in a whole different realm. But then all the saying there should be a velt, and there should be a musik called a mitzias with the gedarim of existence. And then within that realm, there was never a time where Kesser didn't exist. There was never a zman that Kesser didn't exist. There was a zman that they didn't exist. What does it mean that they didn't exist? In their realm, gufa their Hachodesh. You're in a slavish. How is a person be'etzim? He's sitting down to learn the Gemara. He has to activate the seichel and learn the Gemara. How is he? What is a person without doing anything? What is he in his natural state without going to affect anything? Whatever the tzir is. So that it doesn't have to be in his chadash. You don't have to be mechadash not doing anything. As mechadash doing something. Not doing anything, you don't have to be mechadash. So Kesser is the mitzias kameshi hi be'etzim. But the Eibusher is not mitzias b'chlal. The Eibusher is b'chlal higher than the whole musik of mitzias. Menetach, wie hebt sich an gile lekus in welt? That's the shayla. Avad is high makam. There's a place where there's no makam altogether. But within wie hebt sich an a welt? That's the shayla. There was never a time where Kesser didn't exist. That's kadin kadet mitzias bar. No, Kesser mitzad shilas kol ateirim dafnir zayin kin Kesser. Kesser is not Ein Sof in the sense that it exists everywhere. The Eibusher is mechadesh it. But from when all were saying there should be the musik of a velt, that's the way the mitzias of velt begins. That's the atzmius of the mitzias elements. The etzem of velt is Ein Sof. Means what's the initial gili elikus that's shaykhs to be in gali in velt. The shilas kol ateirim is v'chal higher than the whole musik of mitzias. Built mitzias nimtzi. But what's the initial musik of elikus that's shaykhs to be in gali in elements? That's Ein Sof. That's Kesser. Hecher from Kesser can never nishbissen. Not only never, it cannot be expressed in mitzias. The in of shilas kol ateirim. So what's the initial most say elikus without tzimtzum, legabe velt, without any tzimtzumim is ratzin, is blikvol. Now, but within the mitzias of velt gufe, there's chachma, there's ches. That's already tzimtzumim within that inyan gufe. That's already a chiddush. So, in order to be ein sof l'espashtusei, to not be something which is within its realm as a chiddush, is going to be mugdal. But something which in its realm is not a chiddush, it's going to be ein sof within its realm.
What does that mean? To be a chiddush in its realm or not?
What does that mean? I'm saying that's what I'm saying. The dugma when you get what I'm saying is that we understand that is the fact that we're quiet, not speaking, is that deeper or stronger than speaking, or it's the same. Do you have to do anything to be quiet? But you have to do something to speak. So that means that being quiet is does not have to be made. It is that way. That's the way it is. Mashaykin speaking has to be made, and if it has to be made, so anything which has to be made it exists only dependent of how much energy you put into it. It's going to be limited. So why is it that being quiet? So why is it? Because the person naturally, the natural state of the human being is that he's not doing anything. That's the natural state. If you say, yes, why are you going to talk? That's a pool already. You're going to do something. So that's well, the question is the neshama, the way the neshama is the ma'ila. The concept of quiet doesn't either exist. So the concept of being quiet was nischadesh. Do we have such a question? The neshama de'elam, the way it was namayla, doesn't really is a different caliber b'chlal. We left that energy. Neshama de'elam ma'ila is neshama the way it is namayla. That we left that realm. Within the realm that we are now, what's the natural state of this realm? The natural state of this realm, and whatever the natural state is, that's going to be deeper ingrained in the Metzias, always deeper ingrained than the mode that you have to affect. What I'm trying to bring out is there's a certain besides for Atzmos, nothing has to be. Nothing has to exist. Everything was Hachodesh. No question, everything was Hachodesh. The Musik of Bligvo, everything was Hachodesh. But the question is like this. According to Mekubal Marishainim, the Atzmos HaBeiri Shlilas Kol HaTeirah. Lepel, the reality is limited. What do you mean limited? The reality is existence has a taich. Existence has already a meaning. Atzmos is higher than the whole idea of existence. The Metzias of Atzmos cannot be expressed within the realm of Nivraim. Because this is Shlilas Kol HaTeirah. No gather at all. And this is already a certain musik, a certain taich. So the Avadim said that the Eivish wanted it didn't have to be a velt and didn't have to be anything. But Oliver said it should be a velt, and the Eivish wanted that he should be Nizgal in velt. So what's the La'achrish Oliver said it should be a velt, let's say. What's the initial state? And the Eivish made Chukei Abriya. Mitzat Chukei Abriya, the way the Eivish is angestellt, the Mitzias, the Inyan, the way it has to be be'etzem is Bligvo, is Pshitis, is no Tzir. Tzir is a Chiddush. Pshitis is not a Chiddush. Within the realm of velt. Within the realm of the Metzias Abriya. You understand what I'm saying? So Mele, Blig Vol doesn't need a makim. It doesn't have, within the realm of Velt, it doesn't exist because it's not existing because of a reason. It exists because that's the way things are. Within our realm, Blig Vol, that's the way it is. This is reality. This is the truth of reality. From our point of view, the truth of reality is Blig Vol. Ashegin ad Metzias Mugbal, it was Nischadesh. It's not the way the Inyanim are be'etzem. And the emes is Ein Sof L'Speshul Seh.
When you say Makim, this place.
Makim means that in the darga, in his darga, he's here only with a certain amount. But if the way you are, that's the emes of the sin. It doesn't have to be Nischadesh. So it's not you're not. You don't possess only how much was given to you. This is the way it is. Yeah. See later, as the Chiddush Alter Rebbe of Eir, the Chiddush Alter Rebbe is that the Metzias also is all the saying should be a velt, and the Alter Rebbe's Chiddush of Eir Mein Amar is Eir on one hand is Gilui. Eir on one hand is Gilui is that he's Nirgash Metzias, Spashtus. But what's Nirgash Metzias? The Emes Kamei Shehu is Meir Metzias. Means the Shlilas Kol HaTeirah Kamei Shehu is Meir in the realm and in the Musagim of Metzias. So according to the Alter Rebbe, the Metzias doesn't begin with Ein Sof. The Metzias begins with Atzmos, not with Ein Sof. Because the initial Metzias is the Etzem being reflected, is the Ermei and Amar. According to the Mekubal Marishayim, and according to the Ramak, Atzmos is beyond the whole realm of Metzias. Metzias is a certain limitation. Metzias is a certain definition, a certain taich. The Metzias has a certain the musik of Bria of Metzias Abriya has a certain taich that can't contain within itself, and that's a whole different be'enarech klal to the Shlilas Kol HaTeirah. So maybe you can't decide what's true like Metzias based on Shlilas Kol HaTeirah. It's a whole different realm of reality legamri. And the initial Metzias is Ein Sof, according to the Kabbalah Marishayim. Means if Mitzat Seichel and Evrayim, let's say it in this way. Mitzat Seichel and Evrayim, what's the truth? Mitzat Seichel Abriya, according to the Kabbalah Marishayim, not Mitzat Seichel Abriya. Mitzat G'darim Avelt. What's the ultimate Metzias? What's the truth? Is the fact that the Eibush is Ein Sof. Shlilas Kol HaTeirah, that's as they state in Torah, and that's we know. But Velt is not Machriyat. The initial musik of Elokus, the way is Nimshach and is Gal in Velt, is the fact that the Eibush is B'Digvul, is Ein Sof, is Ratz, is Keser. Shlilas Kol HaTeirah, that has nothing to do with Welt. How do we know about it? Al Teira steht das. But it's not mitzad mitzias of Bria. You cannot trace back to Shlilas Kol Teira. But again, according to the Alter Rebbe, Shlilas Kol Teira is begilui. Begilui means that he's nirgash in mitzias. And what's nirgash in mitzias? Shlilas Kol Teira. It means that the mitzias begins with the mitzvah about. We'll set to see the product of this. We'll continue this part. We'll continue this Wednesday. Yeah, no, Wednesday, Tuesday.